Hello, and welcome to the Simply Business Interview Podcast, a podcast created by business owners for business owners. I am your host, John Jennings. And I believe that most business owners are working way too hard for much too little. And one of our issues is that we overcomplexify things. I believe the answers are almost always within us or within our reach. I like to say that I'm a simple man with simple ideas. So welcome to Simply Business. Okay, so today we are joined by Doug Lacy, who's the founder and president of Pivotal. They are an IT services firm. Looking forward to learning more about them. Doug, first, thank you for coming on the program. Appreciate you joining us. Why don't you start us off with just introducing yourself. Tell a little bit about what Pivotal does and what you do.
Great. And so I'm Doug Lacy. As you said, John, I'm the founder of Pivotal. My title is president. I actually, in my day-to-day job for Pivotal, I'm now really our chief evangelist, our head sales guy, but mostly I just make sure our clients are happy and that we're doing a good job for our clients. Pivotal has been in business now for 11 years. We are a field services company, an IT field services company. Our focus is on data center support and network design, network installation, and low voltage cabling. We're privileged to have about 50 of the Fortune 500 companies as our clients.
Nice.
And we have capabilities so that we're covering all 50 states in the United States, most of the provinces of Canada, and most of the countries globally. So we've got coverage in about 150 different countries throughout the world, where we have field technicians. And then also in some countries, we have managers as well. So we have a management team in Spain and in the UK and in Poland and then in Colombia, as well as in Switzerland. And then, of course, in the United States as well. And then we have two service desks as well. So we have a service desk in Mexico City and then a service desk in the Philippines as well to support our clients. All told, we have about 250 to 300 employees in our company supporting our clients globally, and then about 10,000 different technicians that we're using throughout the world.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I was expecting the number to be thousands. When you said 250, I thought that doesn't sound right. But so you're using a lot of technicians as subcontractors, I guess, to help you get the job.
Yeah, our model, we have our own technicians, W2, what we in the United States call W2 technicians, or dedicated technicians outside the United States as well. But we, for the most part, have technicians who we've developed a relationship with as independent contractors, and these independent contractors work in our systems and provide our service, and we pay them directly, but we are providing the service, through these independent contractors, right. And we're for our benefit, we're only paying them when we use them, and so that helps keep costs down. And so for us, we've got a mix of, most of them are independent contractors, but then of our own technicians, we have about 150 of our own technicians, mostly in the United States, but also in Canada and Europe as well.
Excellent. That's as we were talking before we started recording, I've been in a little of that industry, but not at that scale. That's a crazy scale to think about, being in so many countries. I'd like to maybe come back and touch on some of the challenges there. But first, I always kind of just like to start with founders. What inspired you to start your own business? What was that inkling or that nudge you got, that spark that caused you to do this?
Well, I have always told everyone that if it were my own decision, I wouldn't have started the business. I believe there's multiple kinds of people, and some people are really good at starting things, and I'm the type of person that I'm not good at starting things, but I'm good at finishing things. And so when a friend of mine had the idea to start a business, and he asked me to join him in starting the business, I was happy to take that leap. And I really only took that leap knowing that I wouldn't be out there just simply by myself. And so I took the leap. And then a few years after starting the business with a friend, he decided it wasn't for him. So I bought him out.
Okay.
But I was one of those kind of, I'm not a classic entrepreneur where, I felt really called to start a business, especially in field services, and IT field services, no less. I had a 25-year career in different industries, but mostly in IT and mostly in field services. So I had a lot of the experience, but I didn't feel like I was going to be a good person to start the business. But then with a little nudge from my friend, I did. And then once things got going, it was like I didn't dare let up. I felt like I
Yeah.
just really had to continue to work and drive to grow the business. So I have always thought that I would be terrible at actually starting a new company if I ever have to do it, but I need to find a company that is just small enough that I can come in and help drive the business. So I'm kind of not the classic entrepreneur in that sense, certainly.
Well, everybody has their own, style and their own approach. But you hit on something that comes up a lot when I talk to founders. Most of them don't go it alone. There's a few, but most of them find that partner that complements each other. They that I had one the other day, a person on the podcast who um, he was the sales guy, and then there was another guy who was the finance guy, and there was another guy who was the operations guy, and the three of them came together and formed this perfect union, and they've done well as well. It sounds like you and your partner had some of that similar kind of complementary skills.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's I can't even imagine having a business, going alone without yeah, I mean, I think there's some sole, proprietorships that, can be successful with just one person. But for me and the size we are, there's actually probably about 20 people who are absolutely crucial to our business and to our success. And in kind of in those early days, I when I started, I knew nothing about finance at all. In fact, I didn't even know how to really read a balance sheet or, even do cash flow or anything like that. And so,
Right.
I was blessed in that um, it wasn't just me being that person who was trying to do cash flow and also trying to win business and trying to keep the delivery going. And so I think that's the one thing. It's always a huge. I believe it's a difficult decision whether to bring somebody in to support the business in to basically help cover for a weakness. Certainly for me,
Mhm.
I have a number of great weaknesses, and that I have super people that are just like covering those weaknesses for me.
Right.
And deciding whether to bring them in is such a hard decision and incredibly important. I mean, I think,
Yeah.
and of course, over the course of the 11 years, I've made some decisions about bringing in people that turned out to be very wrong. And then there were others that I've just looked back and I'm so grateful that they joined because, I mean, in a lot of cases, we wouldn't have a business if it weren't for that person, kind of,
Yeah.
filling in that gap that I had.
Yeah. We also often see we call them the founders trap or founders traps, that there's these traps that founders and business owners get into where it's just really hard to get past, and like around 10 employees is the first one. It's like when okay, this is getting a little too big for us to kind of do it, out of the back of our truck, so to speak.
Yeah.
We have to get serious about this business. And then you get around 50 or so, and then 100, there's these, it just seems to be these like uh, periods that just, I mean, it just takes a lot of Herculean effort almost to get you over it. Was there one of those that you can think of that was specifically kind of difficult or challenging?
Um, well, I think there have been a bunch of them actually.
I
Many,
appreciate
right?
your
So
honesty.
I think that's the thing I am realizing, and I think if 11 years ago and I'd known how many challenges and how difficult it was going to be um, to maintain and or grow a business, I probably would never have gone into it and started the business. Um, but now I'm grateful and I'm so glad I did. But one of the probably the most difficult for us, but the most rewarding for us was it was probably about 6 years ago. We had a we had a essentially we had a type of client, which well really a managed service provider type of client that was that they were really our most important clients, our most important group of clients. They represented about 95% of our revenue, and we had to go from you having that group and being that kind of really crucial from a revenue standpoint, albeit low margin, but very, very crucial for keep the lights on type of business, to moving away from that client base into a kind of a higher tier client base and
Yeah.
making the leap. First of all, there was a lot of challenges associated with cash flow, as well as investing in really changing our way of acquiring clients, as well as some of our capabilities. But at the same time, is that that new group of clients, the amount of time it took to bring them on board and to really kind of start seeing real revenue was extremely long. So there was a really kind of a 2 year period where we went from relying very heavily on a group of clients, and it was a relatively small group of clients, 90% of our revenue, to moving to a broader base of clients that we knew strategically we had to do it, and it was incredibly painful to
Yeah.
to make that leap, but making that leap has paid off for us in many, many ways. And certainly it was one of those things where we just had to make the decision to do it and then focus all of our efforts on really bringing in and nurturing that other type of client. And so strategically, during that entire period of time, I was doubting myself the entire time, going, this is a bad decision. Is this a bad decision? It is a
Right.
bad decision. But, almost once the die has been cast, you have to just keep moving forward and
Yeah.
making it happen. Sometimes really by sheer force of will, rather than and rather than looking back, right? So that was, I think, one of the more real inflection points for us as a business, and certainly one of those times where it was really tough to make
Yeah.
that leap. And then it's less of a leap and more of a slog, really, is what it was. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's but again, that's one of many. It seems like there've been
Yeah.
one every few years has something
Yeah.
like that has happened.
But I mean, a 2 year transition. I mean, there's a lot of people that just don't have that kind of patience. That says a lot about your leadership as well as your team around you. That you saw the strategic value and said, we're going to stick with this. I can relate. It's funny you said 95% because when I was in that similar space, about 95% of our revenue was from one client, not just one type of client, one particular client. Now they were a well-known client, and everybody would know their name if I said them, and they paid very well and all that stuff. But we had to break away from that because the proverbial eggs in one basket, right?
Right.
And so we started building the business, with a multitude of clients, both commercial and government. And yeah, it was 2 years before we had a significant cash flow coming from that. So yeah, I can relate to that story quite a bit. That's interesting, and it's probably not that uncommon.
I think
But
it's pretty, especially for in IT services, and really your story of one client that we had at the beginning. We were in the same that exact same position. One client represented more like 75% of our revenue,
yeah,
and again, that the I mean, the diversity of clients to me is absolutely hugely important. And you can get stuck into this, hey, we've got this one client that is so important to us, and everything else needs to, get less attention. But we were in the same position. I think a lot of smaller IT service companies are, they have a relationship that they've built with one client that's really strong. And then if something happens to that client, it's
yeah,
devastating.
yeah, Yeah. And eventually was in our case.
Yeah.
Eventually
That's
was. So tell me about how you broke into the international market. That just seems like such a challenge. We did some international stuff. It was always just heavy lifting, and we barely made any money off of it, that sort of thing. So I'm just kind of curious, I guess what sparked that, and what learnings do you have from that?
Great question. Well, so the original and actually my friend who I was talking about who helped found the business, um, his original idea was to provide IT field services focused on international. So
Oh, okay.
so originally the very start of it, we were planning on actively building out capability internationally. And I
Okay.
think if we hadn't started from that angle, we would not have successfully built out our international capabilities. But um, really myself and the co-founder and then several of the other people who were involved early on in the business, we all had worked for IT service providers that were multinationals that were providing international
Yeah.
service capability already. So a lot of, there was a lot of learnings, and in particular learnings associated with some legal requirements and customs and making sure that we could import um, equipment and those types of things. But a lot of that knowledge that we had already gained, for example, I worked for IBM for a number of years, and
Mhm.
always my customers were multinational clients who I was doing work outside the US. So a lot of that is just knowledge that we had already gained over the years of being in the industry.
Okay.
Um, the truth is, for international services, there's a company out there for anything you want done internationally, and it's just
Mhm.
finding that right company who can do that. So hey, I want to import hard drives into Thailand. There's a company out there who will do that for you, and it's
Right.
just the fee that associated
Yeah.
with that, and also finding that right company. And then what we found over many years is the more relationships you build internationally, the more relationships just multiply and grow. So we have the capability of doing many, many different things internationally just simply through those many relationships. And where the rubber meets the road for us is, can we price what those services are, so that we'll win the business? And so now we have been, over many years, have been able to successfully price that. So for example, hey, we need laptops configured in Spain, say, for example, we can do that, and we do that all day, every day, but it's through a partner in Spain that we've developed a
Right.
relationship with. So for us, and really, I think, the modern business now is, it's all about having those great relationships and finding companies you can trust. And then, of course, finding companies who, even when they, when they screw up, then they're going to find a way to make things
Yeah.
right. And so we have, some of our international partners have been doing it. We've been had a relationship for 10 years, and
Yeah.
I trust them as much as I trust myself in being able to do things and get things done successfully. And so then, for example, you had mentioned UPS. We have done a lot of work for UPS in the past. We opened up UPS's access points in Italy, where they receive all of their, like their smaller packages, and we did that through partners throughout Italy.
Yeah.
And it's just because we've had relationships with partners in Italy that can do that for many years. So it's about knowing and
Yeah.
nurturing the relationships and maintaining them is so key.
Well, that's really the modern business model, right? You don't have 10,000 employees anymore. You have your 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 core people, and then you've got great partnerships, and
Yeah.
you partnerships far outnumber your employees. And I think that's a business model that people are seeing in every sector.
Yeah. For us is we have that one niche, and then through that niche, we can do many, many things, and we get lots of work requests and lots of opportunities and projects because we are known for being able to do this one thing. But then very often, we're using partners to do everything outside of what we do, and we're doing this piece, but it's a $5 million project, and we're really only delivering $500,000 of it, but
Yeah.
we're billing the client for 5 million. And
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's the model. I don't know how you would do IT services without being able to do that now, right? Because everything's so interwoven.
Yeah. Yeah. We used to, sometimes go in and have partners, that would carry half the load, like, they might face, say focus on the telephone systems while we focused on the, maybe the network systems, but it's become so much more integrated now
Yeah.
that's even harder to do. That's really interesting. Um, so what's you've touched on a couple of things, but if I just ask you the question about what's been your biggest surprise as being the business owner, what would you think? What comes to mind?
Probably the fact that and I mean, this is very obvious, but I don't think most entrepreneurs, when they're starting a company, they think about this, and it's probably better that they don't think about this. But you're never done, right? There's always something more that you can or should be doing. It's just the constant, at least for me, and I think most really good and successful business owners um, are constantly in their back of their mind. They have this kind of thing running, going, what do I need to focus on? What should I do?
Yeah.
Right. And oh, I need to get this done. And I need to, there's just a constant, like, I love it, by the way. I don't
Yeah.
dislike that feeling, but it is constantly a feeling of, there's just so much more to do and so much more
Yeah.
you could do, and just that kind of drive and hunger to, and I never really had that when I was employed by,
Right.
any of my previous companies. Hopefully my boss from IBM's not hearing this, but I didn't
No,
have that need to go, Okay, this
it,
morning, what I've got to
it's
get all of
it's
this
really
done.
hard
Like,
when you're in the corporate role. I mean, I spent 25 years there. You don't, I mean, yeah, I mean, I wanted my projects to go great and I wanted my internal clients to be happy, but I wasn't sitting there dreaming of things like, like when I really got into entrepreneurial roles. It's a completely different mindset.
yeah,
Yeah.
your brain
But
switches on to the drive forward mode, I think. And it's really hard to turn that off as well,
yeah.
which is,
Well,
I think, a negative for, families and
yeah.
for a
Well,
family life.
and so, we call that the kind of the restless gene or the restless voice that most entrepreneurs, or I'll say at least good entrepreneurs, have, but it's all about taking it in doses, right? It's all about being able to control it and say, okay, right now I need to not listen to that voice. I need to focus on doing this right. Or, hey, I used to not be able to go on vacation and really enjoy it. I would be stressed about what was going on at the office. That uh, you have to get past those,
Yeah.
or it's one of my little sayings I use with my purpose statement really is, I say that most business owners are working way too hard for much too little. And it's not necessarily the money. I mean, people always think, oh, you're talking about money. No, sometimes it's much too little freedom or much too little
Yeah.
of, and don't even talk about balance. Balance doesn't happen. Um, but but we do our best to find some uh, whatever balance means to us, which is actually a good question I like to ask sometimes. You mentioned family, so I assume you've got family at home that you're supporting. Uh, what does balance mean to you, and how do you seek to find that?
Well, I think I've gotten a lot better at balance in the last few years, and I think probably I'm like most entrepreneurs in, there's a period of time, especially if you are kind of in survival mode with your business, where you're really, it's almost desperation. Like, you have to put in the effort so you can
Yep.
kind of get through. And now, over the last few years, it's been, it's the business is in a much more comfortable spot, and I'm not constantly thinking about where the next project's coming from and those
Yeah.
things. So the balance for me has become and what has become very important for me is there will be certain periods of time, and certainly on so for certain vacations where I just have no contact and no access, and I'm not looking at email or even receiving client calls, and I will just put on my phone and on my on my email to I'm not available, I'm on vacation, please contact. And
Right.
now I'm in a spot too where I have some really trusted, wonderful people who I feel very 100% comfortable.
Right.
If something, something blows up while I'm gone, they will handle it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that to me, that kind of the silence of, no contact is, except for, of course, personal contact is one thing.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that happened, so we have a few offices, but we're mostly all work from home. And about a year ago, I moved my office into a different part of the house, which I'm actually sitting in a closet, but I built out into an office, and I can
Okay.
close the door, right? So I leave everything and, all my work, and I close the door, and I head out into the main part of the house, and it's kind of like it all goes away. I can focus on family rather than focusing on work. So those two things, I think the separation and, having some separation in the actual physical office space, as well as having certain times. And usually it's only about a week a year where I just turn off my phone and have no, really no communication with work life, and it makes a big difference. So, and I'm always ready to get back to it when I do come back. So, yeah.
Yeah, and that's another good point because if you take a good healthy break, you come back, rejuvenated versus, exhausted, which
Yeah.
yeah, I've had both kind of vacations. Uh so this has been great. I want to wrap up just with one kind of what one piece of advice that you would give an aspiring entrepreneur. You've already given some great advice, but if I just ask for that one nugget that you'd share, what would that be?
I think to not be afraid to ask for help, and
Mm.
not be afraid to reach out to others, and let people know, be open to people and your friends and family about some of the challenges. And it can be very lonely, I think, as an entrepreneur,
Yeah,
and you can, especially not necessarily lonely, and it's lonely in that no one truly understands what you're going through, and the stress that maybe you're experiencing, especially if it's financial stress. And so
yeah,
I think um, I went for a number of years not being very honest about stress, and not being honest about when needing to ask for help. And then I've learned over the years to ask for help, and
mhm.
it's made all the difference for me. And it's made me much more successful as a
Oh yeah,
business owner, because I can, I've accepted the fact that I can't do it all, and that there's things that I'm frankly really bad at, and then there's some things I'm good at, right? And
yeah.
hey, I'm going to ask for help on these things that I'm really bad at, and it really makes a big difference for me personally in being successful and getting things done successfully.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I mean, that's a maturity that comes with 11 years in business, and uh, that 3 a.m. wake up call. I always talk about it. That's a real thing, and every entrepreneur I know of deals with it. That when your brain just decides to go on high alert.
Right. Usually every 3 a.m. for me.
Yeah. Well, hopefully not. It used to be every 3 a.m. for me, and business in different places still happens every now and then, but not like it
Yeah.
did. But having that person to talk to about that is, about those worries and fears and all that kind of stuff is a big part of it. So that's awesome. I appreciate you sharing that. Uh, well, Doug, I really appreciate your time today. If people want to learn more about Pivotal, or maybe want to talk to you about you supporting their business, how do they get a hold of you?
So we have a website, and it's just pivotal.com, and we spell our name pivital.com.
Okay.
And so it's just pivital.com. And then there's a little form, and the requests every request, well, there's an 800 number, but also a form to request for services or more information. And the form goes directly to me, but our 800 number goes to our service desk, and you can call either one, and we'd be happy to provide field service. We specialize in the hard to do things. We get things done internationally, and we do it well.
Very good. Well, I appreciate your time, and I know my audience will as well. Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you liked it, please share or like it on whatever platform you use. You can find me on social media. On most platforms, I'm John K. Jennings. My first book is also available. Your Baby is Ugly tells you about 10 truths that business owners need to hear, but often won't, and how to overcome them. You can find it on Amazon. Just search for Your Baby is Ugly. And be watching for our next episode, where I'll interview another business owner who will share their stories and insights into what it's like to create a great business.